Continues. We got the NBA Finals coming up this week on Thursday, and we got plenty of draft talk. There's so much going on, so much fluctuation in terms of player rankings, workouts beginning, guys who are completely slept on and out of people's mock drafts now all of a sudden being catapulted into the lottery. There's a lot to talk about. And the Pistons picking 37 is a selection that I think some people don't always know just how valuable the pick is. Maybe 5 to 10 years ago, second round picks were like, whatever. They were thrown around. I'll give you 5, I'll give you 10, I'll give you however many second round picks. It was nothing. Those guys really weren't expected to add up to much. In today's NBA, however, those second round picks sometimes are more valuable than late first round picks because the contract, potential talent, the ability to have a rotation guy on a minimum deal that's a short term deal so you can have more flexibility in terms of what you do with that player. That asset is extremely valuable in today's NBA. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The draft, we're going to begin this conversation. I've given you little sprinkles of draft talk before this, but today is going to be a day we're going to dive into this draft head on. And I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Let me just start off with this draft. It's not a I wouldn't call it an underwhelming draft. It's better than last year's draft. Last year's draft wasn't bad. It just didn't have like top end talent in terms of immediate impact, like I think Cooper Flag and Dylan Harper are going to be. However, I think it tapers off considerably after the first two picks. Ace Bailey, who a lot of people had assumed was 6'10", with a long wingspan and could play a potential forward type of a role as a shooting guard with incredible shot making ability, ends up being measured out close to 6'7" and change, with shoes probably close to 6'8", just under 6'9". And I think we begin to see his talent look a little bit different. Those 2 inches make a difference. 6'10" shooting guard is different than a 6'8", 6'7" shooting guard. We have those prototypes more than we have the 6'10" guy. And so Ace Bailey's talent kind of drops down significantly after his measurements. And so then now you also have a Trey Johnson who measured out a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than what we had thought, presumably in the past. And so now he's closer to Ace Bailey. And so now you see this draft beginning to really kind of settle in into what these prospects really look like. And then you have probably one of the biggest benefits of the draft measurements, Kamen Malawach. Kamen Malawach benefits in one particular area, that the team that's picking number 3 needs him probably more than anybody else. Ace Bailey could be good for the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't doubt it. Jeremiah Fears. Well, Jeremiah Fears is less because they don't really need a point guard. But Trey Johnson could be good for the Philadelphia 76ers as well. But it's not a position of need for the Philadelphia 76ers. The position of need is center. The position of their former MVP, Joel Embiid, who's dealing with considerable knee issues. We don't know if he will ever play again or if he will ever be anywhere near what he used to be, considering his limitations. The greatest ability is availability. Now, what happens if they draft Kamen Malawach? Kamen Malawach, who can come in from day one, probably be somewhat of a Zach Edey, Roy Hibbert type, who also has some skill to extend his range and shooting and things of that nature, who could probably benefit from, if Joel Embiid cared to do so, in terms of mentoring him, building his confidence. He could be a major asset for this team long term, especially having that insurance behind Joel Embiid. And considering that this team is built to try to win a championship, it would behoove them to have some depth at that position outside of an Andre Drummond. All that's to say is that's where this draft is really starting, at number 3. Now, of course, there's been a lot of different prospects. There's some guys that I think are going to drop, like Khan Knuppel, Kaspers Yakashonis. I don't think that those guys are going to go as high as they're listed, because I think that those guys you can find in the NBA right now on a minimum deal or a, mid-level deal. All that's to say is they're not as valuable when that prototype is readily available. The guys who have a talent that's not readily available, those are the individuals whom you're going to be drafting higher in the lottery. Now, once again, this is an interactive chat. So if you have your thoughts about the draft, let's get it. I'm ready to chop it up with y'all. Calm guy, my man. Salute. I think the Philly take Ace and tries to run it back with Embiid. Philly is delusional. You know what? I can't be mad at Philly for being locked in. When you have a guy, you have a guy, and you lock it in, and you ride it out for as long as you have it. That's your era. It is so hard to get a top 10 NBA talent. It is extremely hard. It's even harder to have an MVP level talent. When you have it, you do everything you can to maximize that window. I'm not mad at it. It is what it is, right? The Pacers have Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, right? Milwaukee had Giannis, or still have him, but he's on his way out. Lakers have LeBron. Clippers have Kawhi. If you have the guy, Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry, you make the most of it. You build around it and you go for it. When it comes to the draft, you have to understand that your job at that point is to draft guys who have the ability to either extend that window or to support that window. I think Common Malawach extends that window. Similar to how when you saw Marcus Camby get brought in by the New York Knicks as Patrick Ewing was aging. Having Marcus Camby there extended Patrick Ewing's ability to be effective for the New York Knicks, even if at times Camby was the better talent prospect and long-term outlook. That transitional piece can be essential. And so I think this draft begins at number 3. Get to some of these other comments here. My man Ethan, what's good, man? Um, there's a high probability that this pick results in nothing more than a G League player. If available, lean towards a 4 or a wing. But anybody that can provide real minutes would be worthwhile. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Pistons at number 37, and we're going to get to that because I think that pick can be extremely valuable. And I want to read off some names here. I was commenting on a post on X, and I was trying to explain just how valuable this pick can be. Let me just start off by saying previous drafts, maybe 5, 10 years ago, second round picks did not amount to much. In today's draft, they amount to a lot. A lot. If you can fill in that 7th, 8th, ninth roster spot in your rotation on a second round minimal deal contract, you're winning. Let me just read off some of these names from just last year's second round draft. Jonathan Mobo from the Toronto Raptors. I believe he started over 20 something games. Played, I want to say, over 50 games. Kyle Filipowski, I believe he started 20 something games. Tyler Smith looks like he's going to be a future part of that rotation. Tyler Kolek for the New York Knicks. I'm sorry, I should list some of the teams that they got drafted to. Kyle Filipowski was the Utah Jazz, right? Playing center for them. Got minutes, major minutes, especially in the second half of the season. Tyler Smith of the Bucks started getting more and more minutes as the second half of the season waned on and looks like a promising young prospect. The Trailblazers grabbed Tyler Kolek and traded him to the New York Knicks. A lot of Knicks fans wish Tom Thibodeau would have been playing more Tyler Kolek. His ability to move the ball, orchestrate the offense, make the offensive system look easy, something that they've been missing all year. And you've got guys like Johnny Furphy traded to the Pacers. It's just kind of numbers game. It's just too much talent there. He's still playing behind Jarris Walker, Aaron Neesmith, Benedict Mathurin, Ben Shepherd, all those guys, Andrew Nembhard. Just not a lot of space for him, but looks promising. Bobby Klintman, our own 37 pick. I'm skipping some of these guys that didn't even play. But then you get to the 39th pick, Jalen Wells. Jalen Wells was first team all rookie team in the running for rookie of the year. Started the majority of the season, over 70 games, I believe, or 60 something games. 39th pick, Jalen Wells, 6'8", shooting guard, could defend, play both ends. Extremely valuable. I keep going. Also, Iguodaro traded to the Phoenix Suns. He started, I believe, 20 something games. Adam Bona, after Embiid went down, was a valuable starter for them. You got Jamal Sheed traded to the Toronto Raptors on draft night. Consistent player off the bench and starter at times as a rookie. And you keep going down all the way to Quentin Post at 52. Quentin Post started in an NBA playoff game for the Golden State Warriors and got considerable minutes in the playoffs. Not to mention was a key part of their rotation in the second half of the season. And you got other guys, Ariel Hukporti for the Knicks, Ulrich Chomsky looks promising for the Raptors, Bronny James for the Lakers. You get what I'm kind of alluding to, is that you may not be getting a star. If you're lucky, you're getting a starter. That's now the pinnacle for the second round. If you can find a starting rotation player in the second round, you've killed it. You've absolutely killed it. More than likely, you've just found a rotation player on a great financial deal, which allows you to then invest that much more in your starting lineup. Think about how many of these playoff games that we saw into the bench rotation guys, guys who were getting considerable minutes in the playoffs, like a Ben Shepherd, right? TJ McConnell type. These guys who were able to make significant contributions. I believe Peyton Pritchard might have been a second round pick as well. Sam Hauser, right? These guys who got consistent playing time in the playoffs on minimal deals. What's going on, man? Finally made it to alive. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Smash the like button, y'all. If you're enjoying the interaction, make sure you hit this algorithm. It helps out the channel. Um, all is to say is that second round pick for the Detroit Pistons is valuable. It's extremely valuable. And when we look at the different picks, the different talents that are moving up in this draft, I want to give you a few names to keep in mind here that I think a lot of people are realizing are a lot better than they had presumed at the end of the NCAA regular season or the March Madness. One of the first names, uh, Kobe Sanders, is moving up. He's looking like a early second round to mid second round. Jameer Watkins out of Florida State, 6'7" wing, really skilled. He's moving up as well. He could be late first round, early second round. You have, get up here, Drake Powell out of North Carolina. Could be mid to late first round, early second round. 6'7", athletic wing, 7-foot wingspan. Far more skilled and capable than he was allowed to show in North Carolina. A very valuable talent. You have guys like Chaz Lanier, Alex Tui, Cedric Coward. Cedric Coward is a name that's coming up in the lottery right now. Hanson Yang, 7-footer out of China, reminds a lot of people of Nikola Jokic, less with the ball handling, but right there in terms of passing, touch around the rim, finishing, post moves that have counter moves on top of counter moves on top of counter moves. They love his physical body, his nimbleness, really agile and legit 7-footer. I believe he measured out just over 7 feet without shoes, right? Limited wingspan, just over 7 feet, but he's still able to be extremely effective on the boards, passing, etc. Adu Thero, 6'7", extremely athletic, 7-foot wingspan, versatile, hybrid forward, a great athlete in the open floor, can move well without the ball, decent spot shooter. Then you got guys like Ryan Kalkbrenner, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year in his conference, Player of the Year from his conference, legit 7-footer who can defend the rim, rebound, finish on the interior, can come in right now and be your first center off the bench and be a strong part of your rotation. These are all guys listed in the second round who may have an opportunity to move into the first round. So then you have to look at the guys who are in the first round who may drop to that second round as these other guys, especially like Cedric Howard, move into that first round, especially into the lottery. Well, now we have guys like Janai Broom, who I think, reminds me of a brother from Michigan State who's with the Boston Celtics right now. I always forget his name. Um, but he can be a guy that doesn't hurt you, right? But he's listed on the fringe of the first round, second round. Someone that I really like, Cam Jones from Marquette, 6'5", lead guard, combo guard, not extremely explosive, but extremely crafty. I think he's a player that is able to come in and contribute from day one. Could easily fall into the second round. Yeah, guys like Ben Serif, who's in the Euro League playoffs right now. Um, and then you have Maxime Reynaud, who is actually showing to be in the first round, but has flown up from the bottom of the second round, now solidly in the first round as a legit 7-footer who's really skilled and also rebounds, shoots three, moves really well. Got guys like Walter Clayton, who had a great NCAA tournament, Bashir Fleming, Danny Wolf, etc. The reason why I'm bringing up these names is because these are all potential prospects that even if you don't value them for your team, other teams might value them for their team, which means that your number 37 pick for the Detroit Pistons is now considered extremely valuable because somebody else might want that pick. I've perpetually said I think the Pistons can get a rotation guy from that pick, whether it's someone like a Duthero, Chaz Lanier, whether it's someone like Jameer Watkins. I think there's a lot of talent in this draft that can really cement that bench unit that brings them depth and quality skill on a minimal deal that allows them to spend that money elsewhere and really have a deep bench that allows this team to have another deep run into the playoffs. Or I should say, to make a deep run into the playoffs. And the reason why that's important is because the 82 game season is such a marathon. If you don't have a deep bench, your guys are going to be gassed by the end of the season and more susceptible to what they call soft tissue injuries, right? The strains, the pulls, the groin, the hamstring, the calves. Just look at Stephen Curry, right? Just look at Jimmy Butler. These guys who had soft tissue injuries in the playoffs who weren't able to continue to compete at a high level, right? So these are things to consider why it's so valuable to have a deep bench. Let me see. Ethan Jokic is the best player in the world. Went 41st. It could turn into something. Odds just aren't that good. Let me be honest with you. The odds aren't that much better for the first round picks. However, the reason why I read off that list from last season's second round draft is because it reminds us just how valuable that second round can be. Consider how many names that I brought up. I brought up at least 6 or 7 names who were rotation guys for their teams and started for stints. Jonathan Mogbo, guys like that, Filipowski, Isidoro. There were guys, Jamal Sheed, who were regular parts of their team's rotation and at times starters who were drafted in the second round. I can even go into, if I wanted to, the 2023 NBA draft, if we want to do that really quick, so that we can see. Let me see. Go back here. 2023 NBA draft. Because I want to read off some of these second round names just so we can kind of really understand and get a grasp of how valuable these second round picks are. You got Jalen Pickett traded to the Nuggets, who got playing time this year. Leonard Miller, not as much. Julian Phillips, rotation player for the Bulls. Kobe Jones, rotation player for the Kings. Andre Jackson, rotation player for the Bucks. Hunter Tyson, End of the bench rotation player for the Denver Nuggets. Jordan Walsh hasn't gotten as much burn with the Celtics. I'm just reading it down the list. Muhammad Gay for the Atlanta Hawks started a bulk of games after Jalen Johnson went down, was extremely effective for them. Yeah, Maxwell Lewis now with the Brooklyn Nets, Amari Bailey, right. Tristan Vucevic, rotation player for the Washington Wizards. Ryan Rupert for the Blazers, not too much minutes. City Sissoko, I thought he was going to be better. G.G. Jackson for the Memphis Grizzlies looks like a potential star. He had an injury that sat him out most of this past season, uh, but his talent looks incredible. Incredible. He looks like what we think Ace Bailey is. He looks like what we think Ace Bailey is. But GG is bigger, just as athletic, if not more athletic. Yeah, guys like Seth Lundy for the Hawks. Uh, Imani Bates didn't really get any burn. Thunder, Keontae Johnson. Jalen Wilson for the Nets. Tumani Kamara for the Suns, picked at 52. Tumani Kamara, for those of you who don't know, Tumani Kamara is first team all defense level defense, who can also knock down threes. Upperclassman, 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, if not a little bit longer. Rebounds, moves great without the ball. He's going to be in the league for a long time. Drafted at 52. Jalen Clark for the Timberwolves got into the rotation this year. Trace Jackson Davis, a starter and rotation piece for the Golden State Warriors, drafted at 57. Once again, 5, 6, 7 guys who are rotation guys, and one or two who look like long-term starters. Tumani Kamara, G.G. Jackson, guys like that. That's the second round today. Back in the day, when everybody was just looking for stars or bust in the draft, the second round wasn't utilized as much. Today, that second round is extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. So when we think about the value of that 37 pick, even if your team doesn't want the pick, it's extremely valuable for a lot of teams to have the opportunity to add a rotation piece, especially when you are over the cap. If you're right up against that second apron, you need a guy who can be a rotation piece on a cheap deal. And that's what the second round is today. Let me see. Ethan was good. I know you disagree, but I would move up and get Wolf if I was Trajan. The price isn't crazy high. Are you still high on him? You know what? Is Danny Wolf, Detroit basketball? That's what I asked myself. Is he Detroit jump squad Pistons? Is he someone who can give us defense, toughness, speed, athleticism, getting into passing lanes, turning other teams over, getting out in transition? I don't know. I don't know how much better he is than, let's say, Bobby Clement. I think he is better than Bobby Clement. I just don't know how much better. I don't know if he's that much better that I would draft him to take Bobby Clement's minutes. That's what I don't know when it comes to Danny Wolf. So I don't know if he's worth moving up into the first round to get. If I'm gonna move up into the first round to get someone, it's probably gonna be someone like Rasheer Fleming, 6'8", 7'2", 7'3" wingspan, knockdown three-point shooter, really versatile defender, who improved his ability to create his own shot and get to the rim. He's somebody worth moving into the first round to get with that 37 pick and maybe tack on a future 2026 pick, right? Which I'm okay with the Pistons doing, considering they're going to be picking out of the lottery on the back end of the first round for the foreseeable future. So if you can get a rotation guy, a starter, like I wouldn't give up next year's first round pick for Rasheer Fleming. Don't get me wrong, but I would give him up for, let's say, PJ Washington, someone who's young in his prime, can grow with this team, and I see as a long-term starting option. Get to some of these other points here. And if I'm missing your comment, feel free to drop a super chat and we'll stop and pivot and talk about that. There's a lot of comments flowing. I appreciate it. Pistons need to focus on guys that can shoot already. Yeah, I agree. That's why Chaz Lanier has been my favorite to come out of the second round for the Detroit Pistons. I think he's ready to come in right now. Desmond Bain with a longer wingspan who could potentially uh, be a high volume shooter who in stints can look like a solid starter. I think at 23 years old, comes in physically ready. His game is ready to go. Let's get to some of these other comments. We might have to call this the morning tea session, even though it's midday. Let me see. A lot of players are going to be coming in older. Yep. When it comes to the late first, second round, older players are great options. Completely. Completely. And when you get an older player, I think teams are figuring this out. Look, it's great to have a guy that has potential. But what's more valuable than a guy who has a lot of potential, who could potentially become an all-star, maybe superstar? Just as valuable is someone who on a rookie deal, especially in the second round, who can be your starter. Think about how valuable Jalen Wells is right now for the Memphis Grizzlies. Right now, Jalen Wells is making, let me go to this right now. Jalen Wells for the Memphis Grizzlies, who started, I want to say, 70 something games, is making under $2 million. He made $1.1 million as a rookie. He's getting 1.9 next season, 2.2, close to 2.3 the year after, 2.48 the year after that. He's your starting forward for an NBA playoff team. $2 million. You know how valuable that contract is? He's pretty much at this point practically what you would consider untouchable. Untouchable. 6'8" forward, knockdown three-point shooter, two-way player, defends at a high level. That's Jalen Wells. That's Jalen Wells right now. Oh yeah, and he started 74 games before he went down with an injury. 74 games. Extremely valuable. Second round pick. Some of these comments. It's flowing here. Would love to make some kind of trade for Kamara. I don't think it's necessary. I think you've got Asar Thompson, very similar. Their skill sets would overlap too much. They would just duplicate each other. But I think he's a very valuable player that I think a lot of other teams are going to try to attain, especially from Portland. I think Portland has a consolidation trade coming quick. There's a consolidation trade coming extremely fast for the Portland Trailblazers. Let me see. Tamani Kamara, yep, older guy. Rasheer Fleming would be the final piece. I could see that. Multiple guys that can guard guards and forward. Yep. Chaz Lanier tops my list for the pick as well. Yep, I definitely agree. Um, Fleming's I don't think falls past 25 at all. Well, it would be crazy to trade Kamara. I I agree with that too. Consider that they also have Matisse Thybulle, and they have a lot of other talented players there in Portland. Let me just read off this list. Uh, Portland has Ryan Rupert, City Sissoko, Jabari Walker, Delano Banton, Chris Murray, Shaden Sharp, Matisse Thybulle, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons. These are all guys playing on the wings, man. All guys that are playing on the wings. I think they're already locked into Denny Avdija, who they've already extended. So he's locked in at the three. Tumani Kamara right now is on a great deal, an amazing deal, but he's also coming off your bench. And if you also have Chris Murray, you have Shaden Sharp, you got Scoot Henderson, you got all these guys who are also going to need playing time, it becomes a numbers crunch. Right now, he's more valuable to someone else than he is for you. Knowing that, you can package him, potentially get into this first round, get into a higher pick in this first round. Maybe you want that number 3 pick. Maybe you want Common Malawach. Maybe you're going to go ahead and trade DeAndre Ayton. Maybe let Robert Williams go. You still like Donovan Clingan, who's only 21 years old, and you want to grab one of these guys. I think there's a consolidation trade coming for the Portland Trailblazers. They really do have a glutton of talent there. Get to some of these other comments here. Um, this point, Fleming is almost certainly a lottery pick. I think so too. Rising too much. It's getting impossible to hide him. Yeah, no, he's no longer hidden. Chazanier is likely a first round pick despite his age, a sleeper. I'm high on Avdalis from Greece, lockdown defender, knockdown shooter. Yeah, they should inquire about Jabari Smith Jr. I've told y'all about Jabari Smith Jr. I like him a lot. I think Houston likes him a lot too. I think they also foresee Jabari Smith Jr. taking a jump this year, a major jump. He started to last season, then he got hurt. Amin Thompson took his spot, and they didn't want to mess up the chemistry, and so they kept starting Dylan Brooks. I think Dylan Brooks goes to the bench this year or gets traded because they still have what's his name coming off the bench for them for the Houston Rockets. They still have where's he at? Tari Eason coming off the bench. And I think that they prefer him as a forward off the bench, even over Dylan Brooks, who is going into a contract year. Yeah, next season. No, next season won't be his contract year. The following year, so he's still under a really good deal. It's a descending deal as well, so that's a very valuable contract. Getting 21 million, 19 million, considering that he won't be starting for you next season, and you got to extend Fred Van Vliet. I can totally see Dylan Brooks being included in a trade this year completely, especially because Houston needs another center. I think they like Steven Adams, but I don't think he's a long term solution for them. I wouldn't be shocked to see Dylan Brooks dealt for a team who needs him right now. I can see him on a team like Phoenix being included in a Kevin Durant deal, right? That's $20 million that could be moved. You can see Kevin Durant elsewhere. I know Houston has been saying that they like him a lot. Who knows? Who knows? Could you see? Yeah, there's a whole lot of things that could be moving around. But yeah, I don't think Jabari Smith Jr. is going anywhere. Uh, Izzy, agreed. Just the type of player I feel we could really use alongside Ron and Asar. Yeah, yeah, Rasheer Fleming, he would be great for us. I think that when we're looking at this draft, something that I would keep in mind is that this offseason is going to be literally wild, wild west. This offseason is going to be absolutely bonkers. I don't think we've seen an offseason like this in an incredibly long time, where you're going to have superstars moving, role players moving. We're going to be having an incredible amount of players moving. And I think that it's going to be an adjustment for all of us because it's going to completely change the shape of each of our divisions, conferences, who's a contender, who's not. Imagine if you see Joel Embiid moved, right? But let's say Joel Embiid is moved for someone like DeAndre Ayton and Tumani Kamara, right? Like, oh, okay, Philly is right back in the mix, right? And they just give up that number 3 pick, and now Portland gets the number 3 pick, Joel Embiid, and they take on that contract, right? Because you look at Joel Embiid's contract. I know it's not a good contract, but if you're a rebuilding team, you're looking at, okay, gonna have him through 28, 29, getting paid 60 million. But if I'm playing a bunch of young guys, it actually helps me tank, right? And you give Joel Embiid all the time he needs to come back 100%. All right. Uh, okay, a disagreement. I see you down here. Let me get to this. Joshua Austin. What do I think about Luke Cornett? I think he's a great pickup. I don't think that he's better than Isaiah Stewart, and I think he's played himself into a larger role than a third string big. So I don't think that he goes to a team like Detroit unless we're willing to pay mid-level exception money for a third string center, which doesn't make sense. But I do think that Luke Cornett gets a gig somewhere um, as a backup center. Look at teams like Phoenix. You look at teams like uh, Toronto. You look at teams like uh, Memphis, even who could use some more size. I mean, actually, Memphis has a good amount of bigs there. But yeah, there's a lot of teams who could use him. Golden State Warriors. right? I think he goes for the role over the contract, unless it's just blowing you out the water. Kevin Durant in Houston would be solid for both teams, depending on what Houston gives up to get him. I think they're going to be. They would likely have to give up Dylan Brooks. Would they have to give up Jabari Smith Jr.? I don't know. I think they would want him to stay there, but they'd have to figure out how to make the money work. Fred Van Vliet might have to be on the move. Who knows? But if I'm Houston, if I'm honest with you, I don't want Kevin Durant. I'm not leveraging my future for this present moment. If anything, I'm making a more lateral move, dealing someone like Dylan Brooks, seeing if I can get a high level shooting guard. Maybe I can go get Anthony Simons. Maybe I can go get um a backup center who can play at a high level for me. Uh, but I don't think I'm going after Kevin Durant. Not for just 1 or 2 more years. I don't think I would do that. I like the core that I have. I'm big on taking your time and building blocks. If you have the right piece who can give you a huge jump, like OKC got with Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso, great. Do that move. Do it. But I'm not a big fan of going all in for a player that reshapes everything and you hope to rekindle the same amount of chemistry and energy, which usually just doesn't happen. Let me see. Okay, here comes the big disagreement from my man Ed. I disagree. Jabari had already lost his spot to Eason prior to injury. Eason also looks like the better for next to Shangoon, considering both he and Jabari need to be featured bigs. I feel like Tari Eason can play on the wing and the forward position. I feel like Jabari Smith Jr. is a better shooter than Tari Eason from the perimeter. I also feel like Jabari Smith Jr. is a better rim defender. And I think that his size at 6'10" with a 7'2" wingspan does a little bit more than the 6'8", 6'7", 6'8" of Tari Eason. I also think that if I'm looking to move on from Dylan Brooks eventually, I would keep I would want to keep Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason as a part of that front court a rotation. And then I would look to move on from Dylan Brooks and try to get a centerpiece. Um, but who knows? Who knows? Uh, I would be willing, and I've said this before, from the Detroit Pistons, I would be willing to give up next year's first round draft pick for Jabari Smith Jr. I would, hands down, hands down. I think he's the perfect piece next to Jalen Duren. I think you can extend him for somewhere around 16 to 18 million. He would be on a great deal. He'd be a bigger version of PJ Washington. Um, yeah, he'd be an excellent pickup for us this offseason. Once again, I think there's going to be mad moves this offseason. I think we're going to be seeing players fluctuate up and down the list, up and down the line of NBA teams. But good point, though, Ed. I appreciate that. Also, smash the like button for me if you're enjoying this interactive live. My name is Ross from The Rock Never Stops. I do these lives regularly. I definitely like to go back and forth with y'all, like we chopping it up in the barbershop. Feel me? Uh, so we got here. Let me see. Ethan, what's going on, man? Houston is in a different position than the Pistons. They don't have a Cade. Makes the risk of going after Durant a better deal. I agree with that as well. But I do think Amin Thompson is that dude that will stir the drink in Houston. I think Amin Thompson, if you utilize him, and I did a video on this, I might tag it after I post this video. I think that if you utilize Amin Thompson like Russell Westbrook was in Oklahoma City, he's a downhill force that can have an extreme amount of gravity. I think he opens the game up for Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Fred Van Vliet, where you take the pressure off of them from being a primary facilitating setup guy that has to be an engine. I don't think those guys are built to be an engine. Amin Thompson can be your engine. I think he can do a Russell Westbrook. I think he can open things up on the floor. And if you have Amin Thompson as your starting engine piece with Fred Van Vliet, Jalen Green, and Jabari Smith Jr., you now have a lot of shooting. And if Alperen Şengün continues to improve his 3-point shot, which is something that I hope Jalen Duren gets a chance to do, I think you can have more than enough shooting around uh, Amin Thompson to allow him to be your focal point. In essence, he could become their Cade Cunningham. He's going to be his own version of himself, right? Freak athlete, 6'7", can get downhill, finish around the rim, developing jump shot. I think if he get that little Russell Westbrook pull up 15-footer, I think he could be fine. Let me see. Yep. All right, here we go. The biggest difference. Oh, wow, there's a whole lot of comments. Woo! If I'm missing your comments, yo, send me a super chat and we'll stop and pause and I'll go straight to it. Sometimes keeping up to all these comments, man, these are a lot of great comments too. Sports Times, hear about Toronto trying to make a big. I did, man. I did, bro. I'm here for it. Look, I love Scotty Barnes. He's not Giannis. Period. Period. If you got to include Scotty to get Giannis, you do it. You put Giannis, RJ Barrett, Manuel Quickly, Brandon Ingram. You have a title contending team with Jakob. That's a championship contending team in a wide open Eastern Conference. I'm not mad at that move at all. I keep telling y'all, Masai Ujiri is a mastermind, right? What the Detroit Pistons are looking like today in terms of this jump squad I was talking about last night, long athletic wings who are versatile, create shots, facilitate, play make for one another, and have a lot of positional size from 1 through 4. That's what he was trying to do when he had Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Ananobi, Delano Banton, and Fred VanVleet at the point. It just didn't work out because there were injuries. Nick Nurse was in an ego trip. Fred VanVleet was trying to get paid, and it didn't work out. But the theory was right on par with what we see the Detroit Pistons potentially developing with Cade Cunningham, Ivy, Asar Thompson, and Ron Holland. All that's to say is he's always ahead of the game. He's always ahead of the game. And he's been acquiring assets all this time. I think you see Toronto be extremely aggressive this offseason. They have an opportunity. I think even without making a move, that's a team that's going to be probably, if they stay healthy, right? Knock on wood, they're probably a top 5 seed. They're probably a top 5 seed. That team has enough talent, depth, shot making, length, so much versatility. Uh, that team is going to be good if it's healthy. But I did hear about him doing a big move this offseason. We shall see. Dylan would have to go just because of the salary. Yep, Houston. Yep, Booker a little bit more sense than Durant for them. That's what I was thinking. That's what I think. I put that on X a while ago. I thought that it made more sense for the Houston Rockets to trade Jalen Green for Devin Booker than it did to go after Kevin Durant. If I'm Phoenix, I'm hitting the reset. Look, I've talked many times about why tanking is not effective. It doesn't work. I still believe that. I also believe it's important to be able to sell high when you know something has run its course. Devin Booker has run its course in Phoenix. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he's your best player on a championship team. I think he's your number 2. And because I don't see that Kevin Durant trade bringing in a pick or an asset who can be that number 1, I think it's time to reset with Devin Booker. I don't think that it makes sense to run Devin Booker out there with Bradley Beal, who has the no trade clause, who you're now stuck with and taking up all your salary cap. They still haven't figured out the right coach to put it all together. I think if I'm Phoenix, I'm looking to hit the reset. Boom. I'm hitting that reset all the way. In fact, shoot, I might even try, if I'm Phoenix, I might trade Kevin Durant and maybe go to Philly and say, hey, you know what? I got this ugly Bradley Beal contract. I'll take your ugly Joel Embiid contract. Give me that number 3 pick, and maybe Jared McCain. I think that's his name, Jared McCain, right? Uh, yeah, Jared McCain, who was almost Rookie of the Year. Give me Jared McCain, the number 3 pick, Joel Embiid, and I'll give you Kevin Durant. And I just hit the reset. I'm going youth movement. Trade Devin Booker for Jalen Green, maybe. Maybe give me a, I don't know, tell them to throw in their draft pick this year, right? Give me a whole bunch of picks. I wouldn't be shocked by that move at all. And just hit the reset. Because where's Houston drafting? Houston has the number 10 pick, right? Be Colin Murray Boyles, Noah Singway. Uh, yeah, that could be an extremely valuable pick. And just hit the reset. Go young. And I'm going to be honest, the 2026 draft is way better than this draft. Way better than this draft. Cam Boozer, what's his name? AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson. These are all guys who could have went number 1 in this draft had they reclassified. There's some real talent in next year's draft. If I'm Phoenix, I have no problem. I would hit the reset button. Durant can go, Booker can go. Just let me get picks, start accumulating picks and young guys, and go with the youth movement. Let me get to some of these other comments here. I'm telling you, this offseason is going to be, it's going to be wild. I can't wait. I can't wait. Let me see. Smith is the perfect age fit for us. Yep. All those points are great, hypothetically. However, it's apparent from Udoka that he felt Tari and Şengün was the better front court. That is true. Also, Houston's 3 of the future is Whitmore. No, it is not. Tari is a true 4 now. I can see that Tari Eason at the 4. I definitely agree that Ime Udoka is not in the development process. That's not where his mind is at. Um, I think he wants to play whoever helps him win right now. And if he has to trade Jabari Smith Jr. and Dylan Brooks for Kevin Durant, if he has that leverage to do that, I think he would do it. I don't know if Kevin Durant, they were the number 2 seed this year. I don't want to take that away from them. I don't know if that makes them a contending team, but I could see. I could see it. I could see it. Kevin Durant, Fred VanVleet, if they're able to hang on to him. Potentially Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, definitely Amin Thompson. He's untouchable. Uh, I could see it. I could see it. So I'm not. That's great points. Let me see. Man, there's a whole lot of great points here. Let me see. Cam Whitmore is definitely not their future 3, bro. Cam Whitmore, the guy that doesn't play defense, doesn't rebound, doesn't pass. How is he an Ime Udoka guy? How does he gain the confidence of his coach? Break that down for me. Break that down for me. And I'm not saying he's not a great talent. Just Cam Whitmore hasn't figured out that the game is more than scoring and shooting. And as a result, he hasn't been able to gain the confidence of his coach. That's why he spent his entire rookie year in the G League and most of this past season in the G League. And now he's barely getting playing time at the end of games when the game is over and already decided. Ime can't trust Cam Whitmore to play the style of basketball that he's building his team around. It makes no sense for him to be the future 3. If anything, he's trade bait. Let me see. Yo, what's good, leading Lions, my man? Do you think anyone we draft will make the rotation? Yes. 100%. Was OKC a tanking team? Yes and no. Yes and no. They played young guys knowing that it would cost them wins, but they did so not egregiously. They weren't withholding players who could play. Uh, they were just playing the young guys. So in other words, like you had Chris Paul and Dennis, not, I almost said Dennis Smith Jr. You had Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder playing in a guard rotation with, um, oh shucks, man, I'm trying to remember all these names. The MVP from OKC, Shea Gilgeous Alexander, right? They were playing together and got into the first round of the playoffs, right? I think they lost to what was it, Houston? They lost to the Houston Rockets. They got into the playoffs. They weren't tanking with SGA. Then after that, they had some rebuild, and then they moved on from guys and they brought in newer, younger guys. They were just playing a young rotation, knowing it wouldn't allow them to maximize the winning, but they were playing for the future. That's not tanking. Tanking is when you are intentionally like Utah. The Utah Jazz were tanking. They were holding out veteran players who know how to win, Jordan Clarkson, guys like that, Colin Sexton. They were holding those guys out intentionally so that they would not accumulate too many wins. John Collins, Laurie Markkinen, basically sitting those guys so they could lose intentionally. That's tanking. That's egregious. That I don't agree with ever. Normalizing losing, right? You're no longer building towards something because the guys in the locker room know, like, oh, you're intentionally withholding assets from us to be able to win. You're not letting us have a chance. You're intentionally telling us to lose, right? So that's egregious. OKC was not doing that. Let me see. Tanking isn't effective. Pistons wouldn't be here if they hadn't tanked. They'd still be running the treadmill of mediocrity, bottom of the playoff, or just outside, no chance to go up. Let me explain the difference. How many teams tank and how many teams it pays off for? And what does that payoff look like? Right? This is what I'm not talking about the one time it maybe works in a specific moment, right? The San Antonio Spurs semi-tanked for Victor Wembanyama, right? But they did the playing young guys who were competitive, just didn't have enough talent to win. They didn't have talent on that. They didn't have veterans that they were withholding, right? They didn't have potential all-stars they were withholding, right? The Detroit Pistons, when they were tanking, trying to get the number one pick when they got Cade Cunningham, they didn't have all-stars that they were withholding, right? They didn't have this great roster and they were like, "Oh, we're just going to hold back guys who could help us win." They just didn't have a really good team to help them win. So, I think there's the difference. And every once in a while, you tank over a few years and you find that guy. But for the most part, it's not paying off. The Charlottes, right? It doesn't pay off for. Minnesota happened to stumble upon Anthony Edwards, but remember they had to go through Andrew Wiggins and Carl Anthony Towns, number one picks, and didn't go anywhere. Kevin Love, right? And didn't go anywhere, right? They've been waiting for a long time to find another guy to build around. So if you want to go 10, 15 plus years tanking to try to find a guy, okay, it's not as effective as people make it seem. I think it's far more effective to draft well, develop, keep flexible contracts, maintain a winning culture, and be able to make moves that allow you to step up gradually. Because, like we keep showing, second round, you can find an all star, you can find a long term starter, you can find guys when you have the infrastructure to cultivate winning and maximize the talent. That's what the Milwaukee Bucks did. Right? They had Jason Kidd, they had other pieces there. They had guys who can help them win, and then they found Giannis and boom, right? I prefer that method than in trying to intentionally lose year after year after year after year. See, I gotta wrap this up in a few minutes. But yeah, let me know your last thoughts on this. This is just the first kind of segment talking about the draft. I think the 37th pick will be really effective for them. Um, I think that there is a lot of potential for them in this draft. And so I anticipate that 37th pick being used either in a trade or to bring in somebody that could be a part of the rotation, a la Chaz Lanier. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Appreciate y'all. I'm about to jump off. I'll be back sooner than you know.